Ideal mesmo para o mundo atual seria fazer o ensino médio junto com o curso técnico, certo? É no Senac que o aluno tem autonomia de verdade, formação cidadã, foco na diversidade, preparação para o Enem, material didático sem taxas e muito mais. Na real, tem tudo que você precisa para se sentir preparado para a vida. Seja para entrar no mundo do trabalho ou te ajudar a decidir o que fazer na faculdade. Quer saber? Senac. Vem comigo! Acesse sp.senac.br/ensino-médio-técnico.
E aí, galera? No podcast de hoje, vamos falar de...
Ninguém precisa passar por isso hoje em dia. Tá com gases? Luftal. Ele age rapidinho, em 10 minutos, aliviando a dor e estufamento dos gases e evitando o pum. Porque desfaz os gases ainda na barriga. Chega de passar dor e constrangimento por conta disso.
Bora gravar de novo que agora eu tô pronto.
Luftal Simeticona, indicado para pacientes com excesso de gases no aparelho digestivo. Se persistirem os sintomas, o médico deverá ser consultado. Dezembro de 2024.
If you are interested in supporting this podcast and at the same time getting all my episodes ad-free, then please head to my website, 3dprintingbasicspod.com. Again, that's 3dprintingbasicspod.com. There you can find all the links to support me, my affiliate links, and as a perk, you can get all my episodes ad-free if you subscribe on Patreon, Spotify, or Apple Music. Again, all my links will be there, as well as a contact form if you have any questions. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hey everybody, just a quick note before we get started on this interview. There were some connectivity issues, so there might be some weird spots, something where it seems like there was a delay, or just some straight cutouts. If you guys have any questions about the interview, feel free to ask me, and I will answer any questions that you guys have. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the interview. Hello, and welcome to 3D Printing Basics. This is episode number 43, and in this episode, I got a nice treat for you guys. I have my friend Eric. He is from the company PCBWay. If you guys know, he is PCBWay. The company has been a long-time sponsor of this podcast, and they've been kind enough to have Eric on to talk about the company a little bit as to what they do, their insights into 3D printing, and just talk about 3D printing in general. Eric, how you doing?
Fine. How are you doing, Tyler?
I'm doing good. Thanks for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. So with that being said, let's just jump right into the questions. To start, I say we just start with, can you tell us a bit about PCBWay and how it became what it is today? I know they're definitely a PCB company, but 3D printing, they kind of do everything. So talk a little bit about that.
Sure. PCBWay is a brand established in 2014 based on a PCB factory with more than 20 years of production experience. This year is our 10th anniversary. The company's scale and production capability are increasing every year. The business scope has also evolved from the initial PCB prototyping to a complex scope that now covers PCB mass production, PCB assembly, PCB design, 3D printing, CNC machining, sheet metal, and injection molding, aiming to provide customers with more comprehensive manufacturing service.
Nice. All right, that's quite a bit. But I'm glad to hear there's a company that does also PCBs as well as 3D printing, because those two things are such tied together. You can't have a 3D printer without a PCB of some kind.
Yeah, so we started with PCB prototype.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that leads me right into my next question of, did it always offer 3D printing services? Is that something that kind of came on down the line? Just how did you guys find 3D printing?
Actually, 3D printing with several other services like CNC machining, sheet metal, and injection molding were launched in 2020. The most important reason for adding this service is that we have received a lot of feedback from customers who need supporting service for the overall assembly of the product, such as customizing a certain part or the enclosure. So my boss said, why not? So there it is now.
I like that. So customers were coming to you and they're like, I need PCBs, but then also wondering if you guys had any of these other services, and your boss was like, oh, let's go for it. Why not? Adding CNC machining and 3D printing. I like that. That's definitely, listening to customers will always be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to ask you into the next question, what is your experience in 3D printing? I definitely like to ask everybody that I interview kind of how they started in 3D printing, how they got into it, because everybody's story is different, and that's what I like so much about the 3D printing community. Is everybody has a different story for how they get into it. Like for me, I got into it because in COVID times during the pandemic, I saw an ad when I was watching a YouTube video, and that just completely took me. I was all the way in, and I've never stopped thinking about 3D printing since. So how did you get into 3D printing?
Yeah, before I was appointed to manage the department, I worked in PCBWay as a marketing manager, actually. Um, my knowledge of 3D printing was limited to the internet and the news. After on-site learning in the factory and even actual machine operating, I gradually understand 3D printing equipment, printing technology, production process, materials, and surface finishes. We have some new machines, 3D printing machines are introduced into our factories, like FDM, like SLA, like SLM.
That's really cool. So you just started working for PCB as a marketing manager, and the more you work there, the more you saw these 3D printers, and you grew to understand it. I like that a lot. I wish I had a job before I was into 3D printing that used 3D printers so I could learn and understand it, because that would have taken out probably 2 years of my 3D printing experience of just trying to learn and understand exactly how they work. So that's really cool. I love that for you. I'm pretty jealous, honestly.
Personally, I was very interested in this 3D printing technology. So I had that my boss told me that there is a chance. So how about you do the job? No,
Nice.
why not?
Why not? I like that. That's really cool. All right, so that leads nicely into the next question. As the head of the 3D printing department, what kind of 3D printing services does PCBWay offer? I know you definitely talked about it. You talked about how you guys offer FDM, SLA, and SLM, but I think we can definitely tie that into the next question too. But for now, let's just answer the first question of what kind of 3D printing services does PCBWay offer? This episode is brought to you by PCBWay. Ready to take your electronics projects to the next level? PCBWay offers everything you need, from custom PCBs to 3D printing and even CNC machining, all under one roof. They're trusted by engineers and makers worldwide for their exceptional quality and fast turnaround. And here's a special deal for listeners of 3D Printing Basics. Use the promo code 3DPrinting squared, SQUARED, to get $10 off your first order. Start your next project with PCBWay and see the difference for yourself. Head over to PCBWay.com today. This episode is brought to you by Sculpteo. Are you ready to bring your 3D printing projects to life? Look no further than Sculpteo. Whether you're a hobbyist, designer, or business owner, Sculpteo's on-demand 3D printing service has you covered. With over 75 materials and finishes to choose from, Sculpteo helps turn your ideas into reality with precision and speed. Plus, as a listener of 3D Printing Basics, you get an exclusive deal. Use the promo code 3DP_basics_10% at checkout for 10% off your order. Don't wait. Take your creations to the next level with Sculpteo.
We mainly offer SLA for most recent materials. SLA is for nylon, SLM for metals like aluminum, stainless steel, titanium, FDM for POA, ABS, PC, ASA. FDM technology is much more familiar for you, for you guys, I think.
Yeah, that's very true. FDM is definitely the most popular in the States and for most beginners and hobbyists, which is mostly.
SLA, SLAS, SLM mainly is for the industrial machine. The scale is huge. We have more than 50 kinds of materials to meet the customers and to meet the needs of different customers.
I like that. That's a lot. That's a lot of offers. That's interesting to me that a company, granted, I don't know too many 3D printing companies. I just know the basic ones like Slant 3D and all those guys. But I've never heard of a company that prioritizes scale SLA printing. And I think that definitely is something unique that gives you guys an advantage in the space.
Yeah. So may I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course. Of course, Eric.
So what kind of materials do you use in most of your life?
So for me, I'd say first the type of 3D printing. I have mostly FDM printers. I have just got my first SLA printer actually recently, and I've been playing around with that. But I almost exclusively use PLA and PETG. I will use TPU probably 5% of the time, but that's about the max of my range.
Oh, you have tried the flexible material like TPU.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's definitely
Have you ever
it's interesting.
have you ever seen a video that someone printed a basketball with TPU?
Yes, I have seen that, and I don't understand
Yeah,
how that works at all. I
it's
really
very
want to
cool.
try it. I don't have a printer that's big enough to print it to a 1-to-1 scale, but I'm definitely interested in trying it because that would be really cool. But I have
Sure.
seen that, and it's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, TPU is a fun one. TPU is a fun one to work with. If it works well, it looks really cool and it is really cool. I remember when I worked at my old job, I did some TPU printing for my boss, and he had never seen it before. He was absolutely blown away. He was like, "I didn't know 3D printing could do stuff like this." He was so surprised,
Wow.
and that was really fun. But if you get it right, TPU is a really fun thing to work with. Just if you have the Bamboo Labs and you have the AMS, don't put TPU in there. It's an absolute nightmare. Don't do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, we can print it. We can print TPU with SOS or FDM.
Oh, nice. That's
Yeah,
really cool.
it's the
How does it
surface is
work with?
the surface is kind of the surface is kind of different.
Yeah,
FDM is the same as the PLA, but
yeah.
SOS is actually raw material is the powder. The raw material is powder, is TPU powder.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that's what
the
that was my
surface is
question.
yeah.
I was like, I was questioning how does TPU get made by SLS? Is there some kind of special TPU powder? That's what I was wondering.
Yeah, it's TPU powder. So laser melting it and make it solid. So the surface is kind of rough, you know that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Yes.
like the SLA or FDM.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a powder in the
Yeah.
above the surface.
Yeah. No, I've
It's
seen.
it's
I have been to some SLS printers. I've seen the surface finish. It's definitely different than
mhm.
SLA or FDM. But that's really cool. I like that. I'd never even thought about TPU being printed in SLS. That's something that I'm going to have to look into. But that leads us nicely into
Mhm.
our next question. The question that personally I've been wanting to ask the most is how does a company as large as
Mhm.
PCBWay on your website, one of the first things that's advertised is we can do one part, we can do thousands of parts, anything from prototyping to scaled manufacturing. And I'm just wondering, how does a company organize itself, something as large as PCBWay, to be able to handle anything from one
Mhm.
part to thousands of parts? Because for me, I'm not as large as PCBWay, obviously, but I'm even having a hard time myself trying to find the right balance between offering mass production and one-off projects. So how does a company like yourselves be able to organize themselves like that?
Mm. Oh, this is a really good question. From my own experience in CNC department management, first of all, I must have a very clear positioning and advantages of my service. I started with prototype and developing process capability to achieve fast delivery. Once delivery and quality are guaranteed, mass production orders will increase, and we start to expand production capacity to ensure that product and batch production are running simultaneously. That's our policy, just like the PCB production.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like that. So you guys started with the prototyping, and then as things got more
Yes,
and more, you guys scaled up, and now you're able to offer. I'd say that's a pretty good business model. I'm following it myself.
yes. We are different. We are different from other Chinese factory. Once we get a big order, we ignore the small order. No, we pay more attention to the prototype orders, actually.
That's really great. And that's something that I know is going to appeal to my audience because that's definitely, I'm sure that's a lot of problems. I've seen it even when I was a hobbyist and I was thinking of getting some stuff outsourced, 3D printing. I was always worried about going to big companies because I had a small order that didn't cost very much. So would they just neglect it, not spend so much time onto it? That's good to hear that there's a company that still cares about the small orders and the little orders. That'll be really nice for us hobbyists out there who are considering using your service.
Yeah, that's why so individual customers from all over the world like PCBWay, because they know that they don't have much demand of product like PCB or 3D printing, maybe just one or two, but he can find a good service at PCBWay.
Yes. That is why I knew you guys were a good company and why I approached you guys about sponsoring this podcast. I appreciate that. All right. Last but not least, my favorite question to ask, I think I'm going to make it a staple in all of my interviews. If you could go back to when you just started 3D printing and give yourself one piece of advice, what do you think you would give yourself?
I think it will be continue to enrich your production capability and services to meet the different levels of customer needs as much as possible. That's exactly what I'm doing now.
I like that. Yeah, surface quality finish, I would say, is most important because it's obviously what the customer looks at. It's what the customer can see. And if you have a poor surface quality finish, it just doesn't look good. So I agree with you there. Surface quality is definitely very important.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's all the questions I have, Eric. Thank you so much for stopping by and letting me interview you guys. Clear PCBWay is a fantastic company. For any of my audience, if you guys need 3D printing services, definitely reach out to PCBWay. I have a discount code in the show notes. Eric, anything you want to say before we call it?
It's my great honor to accept your interview, and very nice to meet you.
Thank you, Eric. It was very, very nice to meet you too. Well, that does it for this episode of 3D Printing Basics. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.